For years, planning our lives around weekends has been the norm for most of us. We squeeze in all our plans, outings, hobbies, chores, and getaways in this 2-day-long window. But what if your weekend was longer? What if you had more time to unwind? More time with your family, more time to tick items off your bucket list. A 3-day weekend is no longer a utopian concept. In many countries, people have gone from thank God it's Friday to thank God it's Thursday. And the UK could soon join this list. More than 3,300 workers spanning across 70 companies ranging from financial service providers to a fish and chip restaurant have started a 4-day work week trial with no cut to their pay. This is the largest trial of its kind. The pilot is running for 6 months and is based on the 100:80:100 model. What does that mean? 100% of the pay for 80% of the time in exchange for a commitment to maintain 100% productivity. Calls to shorten the working week have gathered steam in recent years, and they grew louder as countries emerged from the pandemic-induced lockdowns, as millions of employees were switching to remote working. The United Kingdom is not the only country trying this out. Spain launched a 4-day work week trial in April last year. In New Zealand as well, several companies are trying out a shorter work week. The government in Japan has also unveiled plans to encourage employers to adopt 4-day work weeks. In September last year, the Scottish National Party also announced plans for a 4-day working scheme, which would only apply to office-based jobs. A similar pilot was also launched in Ireland and Iceland. So just how successful have the 4-day work week trials been? In 2019, a survey of over 500 business leaders and over 2,000 employees in the UK revealed that 66% of businesses reported improvements in staff productivity. 78% said the staff were happier. 70% said staff were less stressed. 62% said that employees took fewer sick leaves. And 63% said that a shorter week helped them to attract and retain workers. The shorter week plan has so far been successful in Iceland. The country ran 2 large-scale trials from 2015 to 2019. 86% of the country's workforce is now working shorter hours or is being given the right to shorten their hours. But the plan has not been welcomed everywhere and has attracted criticism. Critics say a shorter work week would wreck the economy as it would increase the costs. They say that completing 5 days of work in just 4 days would need more manpower and could instead be more stressful, hence impacting the mental health of the employees. As the debate rages on, so do the trials across the world. But what we need to look at is the bigger picture. Is a shorter work week a sensible change or harmful in the long run for both the employer and the employee? And with us on the broadcast this minute is Kadira Petegoda from London. She is an international affairs expert. Kadira, thanks very much for being here with us. A 4-day work week would sound like a fantastic idea for an employee, but just how viable is it according to you?
Well, I think if you take a long-term perspective, it is quite viable. In the 1950s, you had predictions that by now people would work far less, sort of even maybe 1 day a week because of the improvements in technology. And instead, in recent decades, we've seen that while technology has improved to a far greater extent and productivity has gone up, people have worked even longer hours and wages have stagnated. And that's because a lot of those productivity gains from the technology went into corporate profits rather than gains for workers. So I think in the long-term perspective, it's definitely feasible. It would solve a lot of the problems we see at the moment in terms of mental health. You've got people coming to a realization that life is not all about work. And I think that shifting that 5 days into 4 days would increase efficiency because people would need to get things done more quickly. And I feel like a lot of the time spent at work is actually inefficient, as well as reducing things like transport costs, accommodation overheads, things we saw that we realized throughout the pandemic.
If we talk about the studies that have been conducted, the surveys that have been conducted, what is your bigger assessment? Because when it comes to the cons, the list is quite long, that there could be the need for more manpower, there could be increased costs, and there could also be more stress for the employees.
Yes, I think what it should be coupled with in order to make it successful is an attitude shift. And I think we're seeing that through the younger generations, particularly the millennial generation, where life is not all about work. And I think that shift needs to permeate to the senior levels in terms of corporations as well, because in the long term, if you have employees overstressed, you're going to need to hire people more regularly, and that has its own costs. So there are negatives, things like the vibrancy of city centres will go down. People will be split up more into their local areas. And yes, there would be pressure on some roles which are already, where people are already working extremely hard during those 5 days, to pack that into 4 days. And I'd say the other risk is that those efficiency gains that we've seen in the studies may reduce after a number of years, because right now you have the novelty of this new approach where workers are very conscious that they want to have those 3 days off. So they would pack all their work into those 4 days. Whereas once they get used to this,
right,
you might see efficiency go back down to the 80%.
Kadira, thanks for being here with us and sharing your perspectives on this debate. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.